Michael Barrett. Questions: arriveCAN efficiency. Answers are passed from person to person along with technical delays until we get an actual response. Sounds just like how the arriveCAN app functions. Here is the clip.
Chair, thanks to the officials for being here today. Has arriveCAN caused delays?
Mr. Keenan, I think you're trying to speak, if I'm not mistaken, but we can't hear you.
Apologies, Mr. Chair. Deputy Keenan's mic isn't working. He was going to suggest that perhaps Denny Vanette from the Canada Border Services Agency could take this question.
Okay, Mr. Vanette, the floor is yours.
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, thanks. I made a small technical adjustment to my computer, but Mr. Chair, I would still stand with the suggestion that Denny Vanette from CBSA answer this question.
Thank you, Mr. Vanette.
Thank you for the question.
And so, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Mr. Chair, the arriveCAN app is actually the vehicle for the provision of the medical information, the public health information that is mandated through the Order in Council as issued by the Public Health Agency of Canada. And without the use of the arriveCAN, for which we receive the information 99.5% of the time in advance in air and in marine, and just over 90% in land, that information would need to be collected either by paper submission or orally for capture and input by a CBSA officer. And so without the arriveCAN, it would take far greater time to process individuals than it currently takes. And you can recall a period of time back in March and April of 2020 when this was being captured on paper. And we had significant delays at Canadian airports and at land borders. And so it's been a very efficient tool to allow for the capture of that public health information. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chair, and thanks for the response there. I think that that's a contrast from the experience that that folks have. That's a contrast with what I'm hearing from frontline officers with CBSA in my community. That's a contrast with what we're hearing from our international partners, that this has dramatically increased wait times at the border for a public health measure that is not, or a supposed public health measure that is not keeping Canadians safe. If the purpose is simply to verify vaccination and we're matching that of our American partners, they don't ask for a demonstration of proof. They just simply ask the question. I'm wondering if the officials would be prepared to table documents related to the continued use of arriveCAN. I referenced in my comments to the minister, or my questions to the minister, the justification that was requested in the summer of 2021. I'm wondering if they could table with the committee, if they could agree to table with the committee the justification for its continued use.
Mr. Chair, I'm just doing a signal check. Is my audio coming through?
It is indeed, Mr. Keenan.
Great. We could. I would repeat one point my colleague from CBSA made, which is that the arriveCAN is a tool for efficiently collecting information that the Government of Canada requires travelers to submit as part of its ongoing COVID protection measures under the interim order under the Quarantine Act administered by the Public Health Agency of Canada. Second point is we would be happy to provide additional documentation. There's a lot of documentation on those orders, the rationale, and how arriveCAN contributes to operationalizing the high volume of people crossing the border.
Thank you. So I would just say through you, Mr. Chair, that it's very efficient. I've crossed into the United States several times. I'm asked by Homeland Security agents if I'm vaccinated, and I say yes, and that's the end. So it's still an offense to lie, and so it seems excessive and redundant at best. So I had referenced some documents, again, some court documents that had been reported on that quoted one of the officials that we've got on our meeting today, and I'm wondering if he's able to speak to if it is standard practice for the government to create a policy and then ask for the supporting evidence for that policy after the policy has been created on the eve of its implementation. Is that standard?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to start off with a key point on the premise of that question and then turn it over to Mr. McCrory to further elaborate. I think a really important point here is that I think the members are referring to media reports about the information filed by Transport Canada in a court case on the vaccine mandate. What the media failed to report was that Transport Canada tabled and provided extensive evidence, scientific evidence, on the rationale for the vaccine mandate. That was not in the media report, but it was in the testimony and the filings of Transport Canada. We would be happy if it would serve the committee to provide a copy of that information that was actually presented by Transport Canada in court. I think the second point of context I'd like to provide is that throughout the sort of 2+ years of COVID, COVID has not stood still, and we have been evolving and adjusting the health measures at the border and in the transportation system throughout. In that process, we constantly seek updated information from Public Health Agency of Canada. And so there's an ongoing process of pulling information in from the Public Health Agency of Canada as part of our work and using their expertise in health measures to guide the development of our measures.
Thanks for that reply, Mr. Keenan. I guess in tabling that information with the committee, it would be important for you to note if that evidence was provided to Transport Canada before the policy was made, or if the policy was made before the evidence was provided.
I can answer that for you now, Mr. Chair, that significant health evidence was provided to Transport Canada throughout the entire period of COVID. And so from months and months and months before the vaccine mandate, as well as after.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keenan.